Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Reimagining Cyber. Rob here, and today's guest is Tammy Klotz, a best-selling author and currently serving as the CISO at Trinseo. She previously held the role of CISO at Covanta Energy, Pursue Materials, and leadership roles at Air Products and Chemicals. Tammy also serves as the president of the Lehigh Valley chapter of the Cloud Security Alliance, membership chair for Women in Cybersecurity, and was named as a top 100 CISO by Cyber Defense Magazine, acknowledging her outstanding contributions and leadership in the industry. Welcome, Tammy. It's exciting to talk to you again. We've had a long-standing relationship. I'm just glad to pull you back in for an episode. Anything else you'd like to share in your background?
I think you covered the highlights, Rob. Thank you for that. It's just kind of crazy that 30 years in the industry, I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but definitely had a great career and looking forward to being able to share some of my insights with your audience today.
Well, excellent. And we're looking forward to it as well. I mean, we're going to get into, obviously, the leadership approach that you've taken. And there's a lot of that principle I want to bring forward, the women in cyber aspect, especially. So we'll cover that. But I do want to start by giving you an opportunity to discuss a little bit of background on a book you recently released, right? Entitled Leading with Empathy and Grace, Secrets to Developing High-Performing Teams. So kind of help us understand the basis, like what sparked you to drive forward and write this book?
The book was actually inspired by a leader I experienced in my career probably about 20 odd years ago now, actually back at Air Products, right? And I was in a IT service management role at that point in time, spending some time with our healthcare business. And one of the things that he had said to me was, Tammy, he's like, you need to teach people to lead the way you do. And I said, okay. I said, but this is kind of just who I am. He's like, yes, but we need more of you. So figure out how to teach people to do it. So, that stuck with me for a really long time. And I've had several examples over the course of the years where, there are things that don't necessarily appear obvious to me because it's what I do, but I've had others say to me, well, Tammy, when you did this, you made me feel, like I was an equal contributor or I was able to make a difference. So, I've kind of hooked those on to that initial inspiration from my Air Products leader. And then in March of 2023, I voluntarily took a leave of absence from the CISO world, from corporate America. And it was during that time that I took about 6 months off before I came here to Trinseo. And it was during that time I said, you know what, now's probably a really good time for me to kind of think about actually doing this book idea. So it's been very humbling. It's crazy to see it on Amazon, and the feedback has been overwhelming, and I'm just super blessed.
Rightfully so. And it's great that you had that opportunity in your career to say, I'm going to hit kind of the pause button, reflect, but also apply, as you said, over the 20 plus years of where that kind of inspiration came from and pull that back forward. So it's great that you've gotten it out there now. We obviously direct people. We'll put it in our show notes to go take a look at your book up on Amazon and other channels, of course, as well. But I want to connect, obviously, the book, your point of reflection, kind of pulling it all together, back into the world where you've done so many great things as it relates to the field of cybersecurity, especially being a major champion for women in cybersecurity, which is extremely needed. And then tie that, though, to the 6 principles in the book that you referred to as TIPSY. So it'd be great, for us to kind of hear what are the 6 principles at a high level, right? We don't want to give away the book, Tammy, right? Let them go read it, but like top level, take us through it. What is it all about?
Sure. So I'll start with TIPSY and what it stands for, first of all, and then we'll talk a little bit about how that parlays into cyber as well as women in cyber and my work there. So TIPSY, TTIPPC, is actually transparency, togetherness, inclusion, presence, participation, and consistency. These principles will actually go into, how do you build trust and respect within a team that you're leading, within an organization. So transparency, I'll start with, because, there are definitely times in a leadership role that you have information that you can share, and then you have information that you can't share for whatever reason, right? So being, 100% transparent in the delivery of those messages becomes very important. So I always will tell the team, if there's something that you ask and I know the answer to and I'm able to answer it, I will. If you ask and I don't know, I'll go find out. And if I can share, I will. And if I can't share, I will tell you I can't share, at least not at this time. And I will when I can. So that starts to build that respect, right? And making sure folks understand that, you get the real story, right? When you're sharing these types of things. So the other piece, the second T, is around togetherness. And that's really trying to find some creative ways of how to build unity and harmony within the team. And, for me, specifically right now at Trinzio, my team is geographically dispersed, right? So we can't all ever get together, to go for drinks, for happy hour, whatever. So what are we going to do to really start to build that sense of teamwork? And we instituted something very recently called Friday Fun. So Friday Fun happens every Friday morning, 9:30 to 10, because everybody's working then. And the only rule is no work. You're not allowed to talk about work. It's about, what are you doing this weekend? How was your vacation? What did the dog do yesterday? Whatever, and we really, we make sure everybody contributes, and it's really become the highlight, I think, of everybody's week, because they know they have that to look forward to on a Friday, and it's just relaxing and it's just easy.
And personal connection.
Exactly. So building that kind of safe space for everybody to share has been very effective. Inclusion, should go without saying, but it's very important as a leader within an organization to make sure that you are equally accessible to all of the members of your team, and that, there's no perception of favorites, or I'm giving more time to one individual or another. I'm equally available for everybody, as long as they're willing to be a key contributor to the conversation as well. Presence, again, another one that should go without saying, but making sure when you are in a one-on-one conversation with a team member that you are 100% present with them, right? In this world where we're online, through Zoom, through Teams, whatever it happens to be, when you're geographically dispersed, it's way too easy to be distracted, right? And you need to commit to be 100% available for, whether it's an hour, a half hour, whatever the time, give them your time, undividedly, so that they can ask you your questions, you can ask them questions, and it just sets you up for success.
I think just one note I want to pull on that. This was from a meeting that I actually had this morning with a bunch of different team members globally. And you just triggered it for me, which was the person that opened up the call, opened it up basically thanking me for making time for them. And I said, no, thank you all for making time for me. Like, this isn't right. Our time is mutually important, right? To us as individuals, but also to our teams, and for everyone to have a voice on this conversation we're gonna have today. So I think that's a great example of, as you were discussing that just triggered for me the realization, like, sometimes people just think differently about who we are and our roles and whatnot, and they shouldn't. We're all human. We all want to interact and engage and make everyone better.
Yeah. And it's that intentionality that, you need to make that concerted effort, right? And even like at the end of every one-on-one, at least I try to practice this at the end, is there anything else that I can do for you to help you be successful?
Yes,
right? Because it is a give and take relationship. So, and then just to finish out, tipsy participation, making sure everyone's engaged, giving everybody a voice at the table. If somebody's being talked over, making sure you're coming back to them to say, I understand that you were trying to make a statement. What did you have to say? And then consistency, is that reliability. If you're going to have a team meeting once a month, once every 2 weeks, make sure that you're sticking to that, right? Make it
Yeah.
important. Don't dismiss it. Don't reschedule it. Make it something that they can count on. And then the other thing that I really tried to do is make sure that we have a consistent agenda. So again, that there's no surprises. And also during those meetings, I've really worked the agenda such that everybody gets to contribute. So it's not only just me talking to them as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are very key principles for everyone to take away and apply to their work life or personal life as well.
absolutely. Any leadership environment that they're in.
Yeah, I agree. Now, as I kind of opened up, we've known each other for quite some time now, and we've had this conversation in the past that I want to have you kind of share with people, again, this approach, because it's been very successful in the different organizations and roles that you've had, which is you typically get off to a fast start in any organization that you're joining, whether it's past relationships, whether it's brand new relationships, but it's about that key word, trust. It's building trust with new stakeholders at high levels, executives, board level positions. You do a great job in preparing yourself for that success with the homework you do, even I know, in part of the interview process. And then once you're there, right, let's engage. Let's engage in a way also when you're doing your board portion of the presentation on cyber and the program and the things that you're looking to accomplish. You've already had these conversations with others coming into it because now you have that sponsorship, you have that relationship established. So I'm kind of giving away some of the things, obviously, that you're doing, Amy, because I know you. But it's great to have you share, kind of some key takeaways that people can learn from that.
Yeah, so I'll share kind of what I've done. When I moved on to Covanta and then now to Trenzio, this was the first time I was walking into a place where like nobody knew me. So it was a little weird, right? So basically, I spent time going through the organization chart and saying, okay, who are all the people that I need to know or that need to know me? And I basically set up meet and greets with all of them, half hours. I did my research on who they were, who I knew, where they worked, who I knew that was connected to them, right? So that we could develop that synergy that we may not have discovered otherwise. And then really just introduce myself, sat down and talked to them. This is what I'm here to do. What are your pain points? What are your thoughts? Very simple conversation, but then also, following up with the thank you note afterwards and the connection on LinkedIn afterwards. So really that intentionality, again, there's that word, building those relationships, because I could have gone in and started doing my job and they would have been like, who is this person? We don't even, when she get here type thing. Right. But it was more along the lines of what I was being brought into the organization to do. And obviously, it's not just once and done. You've got to work at those relationships as well. And somebody used the phrase with me the other day, Rob, that has really stuck with me. And it was around personal capital, right? And you were kind of alluding to that early on. Like people, when I go in, if I have relationships that I already have built, whether it be with an external community or partner, being able to bring them into a conversation earlier, they're coming because of the relationship that they've formed with me, the trust that is there, right? So, and using, I will say maybe relying on that personal capital to help me be successful as I get started in a new organization, right? But then also the other thing that comes with that, which, may not be obvious in the very beginning, but and I say this with my teams though as well. So it makes complete sense, because once you have the trust and once you have the respect, even if you have to deliver not so great news or not the news that somebody wanted to hear, it is heard very differently because of the empathy and grace, if you will, right? So, whether it's a vendor that I've done a recent proof of concept with and have had to go back to and say, look, just not the right time for us right now. Love the product, just not there. But it's never been to date like a hostile situation. It's more about, I get it, right? And I know that, if and when you're ready, you'll come back, right? So, it's being genuine, it's being authentic, it's not just a bunch of words. So that helps. So personal capital has become like a new term for me now, because it's the investment in the relationship that allows and contributes to the success.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's funny you talk about, being genuine and authentic. And I think those are very key attributes. I had, this just brings it back because I had done a talk. I think it was last spring, and it was about the role AI is playing in cybersecurity. And I was very direct in saying, just take this marketing buzz and put it over here. Let's focus on reality of the things that we can really put our attention on. And you have no idea how many people came up to me after and said, really appreciate the reality of the story you told. Just being authentic about, and it was those key words, genuine, authentic. And I think that just goes so far to build that trust again. But also now those relationships that I came away from that event with, they've been lasting because it's more of a, what are your thoughts amongst us as a peer group talking versus, hey, this particular kind of flashy thing over here that we're calling AI that does all the, no, stop the marketing, focus on this and just say it the way it is. And that goes a long way. So just connecting the dots back to some of the examples that you're sharing out there, I think is also important. I want to get into women in cybersecurity because it's such a critical area of focus. I've been a proponent of it. I know you're a major champion of it. And what I'd like to get your thoughts on, again, to share with the audience is, if you're starting out wanting to get into cybersecurity as a female, if you're in a specific field, different, completely separate from technology even, right? Kind of what recommendations would you give to that person who's just looking, maybe coming out of school, kind of, hey, I want to jump in, or I'm over here doing something I'm not really kind of that excited about any longer. Pick it, doesn't matter. But this over here looks really interesting in cybersecurity. Kind of what are some of the different, thoughts that you would share with them how to do so?
Yeah. So, and I'm currently actively mentoring a few folks right now. And actually a woman that I mentored previously, she and I are going to connect tomorrow for lunch. And it's about the connection, right? And being able to have a conversation with somebody who, if you read the book, I mean, I raised my girls as a single mom and I had the opportunity to be successful in my career, right? And sometimes that can be very daunting, right? So, when I'm working with somebody who's either, trying to get started or wanting to move, as you described, it's really about trying to get into their psyche about what motivates them and what they're passionate about, right? So when I was approached to take on the CISO role initially at Versum, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I've never done this before, right? And I was like, there's got to be, somebody more qualified. And that is typically a female response to that type of question, right? And it was more about, I give a lot of credit to the CIO who was hiring me at that point in time. And he's like, but you've got this, this, and this, you can figure out the rest of it, Tammy. And I was like, okay. So you have to take that risk and have confidence in yourself. And I think, one of the key differentiators when going through like a job description and you're looking at everything that's available, what we will tend to do is we'll want to make sure that we can check every box, where our male colleagues will say, oh, I can do those too. Yeah, I'm good. Right. So what I try to instill and encourage those that I'm mentoring and coaching is, please don't worry about that. I said, you need to still apply and then figure out how you're going to get the interview, right? And spend the time on that so that they can be intrigued with what you can bring to the table. And then you demonstrate what you're capable of. So I think breaking down those barriers about, it's okay not to have every box checked. Also to be confident in what your capabilities are. I recently did a panel discussion back in March for women in tech, and I was moved during the session because one of the attendees raised her hand and she's like, but I'm really struggling to figure out like where I can specialize. She's like, the guys seem to know everything about everything about everything. And I was like, okay, just stop. Right. I'm like, one, they don't. And two, what makes you think that you can't? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I don't know, it makes me sad to some extent, right? That is still what folks are dealing with as they're entering into a male dominated space. But for me, like if you know your stuff, it doesn't matter, right? Bring that to the table and let all the other stuff go. And right now, we never have to wait in the line for the restroom when we go to a conference because there's not that many of us there. But yeah, it's easy to be intimidated, right? But the person who knows you best is you, and bring your best self to the table is, you know, the most important thing. And you know what? If they don't like it, then maybe that's not where you belong.
That's right. That's right. And that's just awesome. And I reflect back on like my daughter as an example and how, well, Dad, I'm not sure that I can go for that next role, right, within the company
Mm.
because all these, and she's in finance, by the way. So another industry that's very much nailed
Yes,
down.
yes, for
And
sure.
so it's the same principle. And I said, we actually had, I think, read a study previously where it was, I want to say it was like men look at a list. And if they're like 60%, maybe checking the boxes, yeah, I got this. I can go for it. Female, as you were saying, it's got to be like close to 100%, if not 100%. And it's like, forget about that. All the things you discussed, like have the confidence, go for it. Think about how you're going to be able to achieve those things because you can do it, right? And it's all about how you apply yourself. And the other thing is, as you just said too, and if you get in there and it's not for you, there's many other opportunities to move on and quickly go do your thing. So I think that's one of the biggest takeaways for sure to consider.
And the other thing I just want to add, Rob, because this it can be a very sensitive subject in a lot of cases, but I never want to get my next role because I'm a female CISO.
Yeah, this is a good point.
I want to get my next role because I'm a great CISO,
That's right.
regardless, right? So I think, there is definitely, as with any situations, there's a positive perspective and a somewhat negative perspective that can come to the table. But I'm never going to use that card
Yeah.
to get the next job that I want. So,
And that is a touchy subject. And because at times it's like, check the box, I got the number filled now, and that's just the wrong way. So I think you bring that up it's extremely real. That's what we're seeing out there in places, and that's not right in certain situations. And I know you're not one of them for sure. And I think that's important though for people to realize, like, no, go for it for yourself. It's all about you for putting yourself first.
correct. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to close with one thing that is recent, impactful, but maybe draws upon some of these discussion points that we've been having. And that goes back to, and I know that you had to deal with this with the team there at Trinseo as related to the outage that came from some of the updates or the update that CrowdStrike was implementing on some Windows systems and whatnot, right? Many globally, obviously impacted. People know that. It's more about kind of what maybe key lessons were learned as you went along the way, especially as it relates to some of the collaboration that had to happen, obviously, at the highest roles within the organization, because it's an major operational impact. And then coming out of those lessons learned, as well as how you communicated, but what adjustments maybe have you decided to make, or has the team at Trinseo decided to make to go forward?
Yeah, so that morning was an interesting morning. I woke up normal time, ready to go to the gym, looked at my phone. I had 65 messages.
Oof.
I was like, oh dear, what are we going to do? So, and I immediately reached out to a member of my team who is always the one who says, I got it, Tammy, not to worry. And I said, what can I do? And he said, I need to talk to you right now. Okay, right here. That's a very telling sign. So they had already instituted the whole priority one process. There was a major incident. And, I kind of got on the first call, listened to what was going on. And then we agreed to regroup and then, gave me a little bit of time to figure out what all was going on. And when we got on the next major incident call after that, it was really about level setting the team that was on the phone, right? Because in so many situations when there is a crisis, which this would qualify as, right? People are frantic, people are nervous, and things can get very chaotic very quickly. So bring that all back in and say, okay, let's talk about what this is and what it is not, and really focusing on the facts of the situation and what we knew to be true at that point in time. So we focused on the fact of, one, it wasn't a cyber attack. So that causes a different set of rules to be invoked if it would have been. What it was a bad channel update. and we had a corrective action plan and we knew what had to be done, but we did not have a plan or how we were going to accomplish that or how we were going to make sense of, how far we had gotten or how much more we had to do. So at that point in time, we basically broke it up into 4 different work streams: workstations, servers, applications, and manufacturing locations. And we appointed a leader to each one of those who was going to kind of spearhead each of that and would have to report back every time we got on the major incident call. So there was structure and everybody knew what needed to happen, right? And everybody was aligned. The other piece of it is that with that common understanding and the acknowledgement of there is only one way to fix this and it's manual, so let's go after it. We had a team of 50-ish people who came together cross-functionally. It didn't matter who you worked for, where you sat in the organization. If you were part of this, you were helping, and it didn't matter, right? So we had people from the plants who were helping. We had people from our OT environment who were helping, our IT environment. And then it was a divide and conquer type of approach. And, they were out, hands on keyboard fixing blue screens of death. We had 2 other separate activities going on from what are we communicating to the user community and what are we communicating to the executive team. And there were 2 respective individuals who were leading those activities as well. So it was about no organizational boundaries, true collaboration. We had a Teams meeting running the whole time. We had a spreadsheet that we were tracking everything in, and everybody rallied and just pulled together to get done what needed to get done. So much so that we did a lessons learned. The CEO came and thanked everybody, which was amazing. And now from a lessons learned perspective, it's okay, this is the first time something of this magnitude had affected us. What can we learn from it? What could we do different? And there definitely, while we rallied and the team did fabulously, there's definitely rooms for, improvement. Things like, do we need to look at maybe a different toolkit for what we do on servers versus laptops? We don't know yet. We haven't figured all that out yet. But evaluating those types of things, especially from a manufacturing perspective, becomes extremely critical. Fortunately, our process control systems were not impacted. We don't run CrowdStrike on those by design at this point, but we did have one plant that struggled to recover for reasons I won't go into. But it was really a matter of, okay, the team was working. And then we finally said, okay, when are we going to stop? And when are we going to restore from backup? Because right now we're wasting cycles. And then we had to get buy-in from the business that they agreed. So it was a truly collaborative troubleshooting effort by a team that just did an amazing job.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear, one, what you could share, but also just how the team came together. It didn't matter what role you played in the organization. You played a role on the team to get things back and operational as best as possible. And I think it's a great understanding of really dealing with the major crisis management coming forward to reality,
Yes. Yeah, we got to do disaster recovery. Yeah.
I was going to say a deeper like tabletop exercise, and here's like, oh.
I'm not thanking CrowdStrike for that, but I could go that way. So, but
no, nobody is. No one is. People are thinking about, how they potentially evolve from this, let's just say. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But listen, appreciate you coming on today and sharing, we tied it back to your book, but sharing the principles that really led through many different examples. And I think we kind of just closed it off with a perfect example of applying all those things in one, right? With this latest issue around the CrowdStrike outage. So really great having you on. We're so happy that you were able to come out and share. We'll put the information out there in our show notes to get people to look at the book as well, of course. But thanks again, Tammy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Always a pleasure.
Hello, producer Ben here, and women in tech is a subject that we've looked at previously on Reimagining Cyber. For example, in episode 9 called Women in Cyber Refuse to be Silenced During Women's History Month and Beyond. One of the guests featured was Laurie Sussman, assistant professor in the Department of Technology at the University of Southern Maine.
I think one of the things that I spend a lot of time talking to women about is they want to be 100% ready. They want to know 63 different electives they should take so they can get into cyber, where guys are like, oh, well, I'll just jump in and I'll figure it out. So we somehow have to get women to understand that they can jump in and fearlessly get involved in cyber in a variety of roles and be very successful.
So do go and check that out, and also the many other editions in our back catalogue. In fact, why not subscribe or follow and make sure that you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.